listening to Finding Your Genius Zone with Dirk Nevelle. It's not just a job. It's not just a paycheck. Or at least it doesn't have to be. With the help of experts across industries, Dirk helps you find your passion and career, as well as exposing the unknown parts of every vocation. Let's go deep. Let's find your genius zone right now. Here's Dirk Nevelle.
Everybody, this is Dirk Nevelle. I'm on with a friend of mine, Ben Saxton. Ben's a guy that, I'm trying to think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know you went to O'Day. I think we played ball against each other, but I got to know you a little bit in college at the University of Washington. You were a Lambda Chi, I was an Alpha Delt. But did we cross paths in high school?
I don't believe so. You were maybe 1 year above me, and so I remember you as being you were rushing. You were helping rush for Alpha Delta.
Yes.
So you were one of the guys I was letting down. I felt bad when I chose a different house.
I remember that. That was a weird feeling because I'm kind of sensitive by nature, and I remember the Fijis gave me a bid, and I liked those guys, but I just didn't feel like my house, but I felt like, oh my God, I'm letting these guys down. But yeah, those were good days. Yeah. I remember you win some, you lose some. I had a lot of buddies in your house. They're great dudes. But anyways, getting into the podcast. So, Ben's a guy that over the years, I'll pick his brain. We're kind of in the same world a little bit. We both are in the world of lending money for real estate. I'm on the residential side, and Ben is more on the commercial side. So, at the end of the day, I get inquiries from people that, are needing help in his world. And he's been always a really informative source for me, and just a guy that I've enjoyed, talking about social issues, politics. Him and I kind of lean the same way. So anyway, Ben, I wanted to say thank you. And maybe you could start it off and just kind of talk a little bit about what it is you do.
Yeah, well, you're very welcome. Thank you as well. It's my pleasure. So what I do specifically is source capital for small to mid-size real estate investors. And, mostly we are using any different tier of commercial lender to provide mortgages for investment or income property. And so you have somebody who is either buying or refinancing any of the sort of several major food groups when it comes to income property. You've got multifamily, which is apartments. You've got mobile home parks. You've got storage facilities. You've got office buildings. You've got retail buildings. You could even have a motel or what they call hospitality, industrial properties. So these are the main food groups of commercial real estate. And most people, or a lot of people, when they're buying them, do so with debt. So just like you would when you're buying a home, you go get a loan. And what I try to do is, is find the right tool for the job and try to get the best debt structure available in the marketplace for that investor to go take down a property or to refinance a property. So I think that answers the question.
Yeah, it's perfect. Just curious, like when you were coming out of UW, did you jump right into this business or did you experience a different industry?
No, I had a pretty circuitous route to this industry. Out of UW, I took a position with the Peace Corps. So I went and volunteered with the Peace Corps down in Central America and Honduras. And through that experience, I was kind of thinking that what I might do is just teach and coach. And so that is what I pursued when I got out of the Peace Corps, is teaching. And I didn't get a teaching credential because I kind of felt like I had plenty of experience, and with a college degree, I was like, why can't I teach? So I didn't volunteer, excuse me. I took some jobs with private schools because I had the Spanish, and that helped me get into some private education jobs. And ultimately, my last stint was working as a substitute teacher in the Oakland Public School District. And if you took that job for 1 year, then they might offer you a full-time position, with the agreement that within that tenure of your first 2 years, you would go and get a teaching degree, a master's or whatever it was that was required at the time. So I did that. I substitute taught for a year, and then I took a job at Havens Middle School, Havens Court Middle School, which was in Oakland. And I taught for a year. I taught 6th and 7th graders. I taught them math and science, although I was instructing in Spanish, because that was the template, and it might still be there in Oakland Public Schools, where you're giving these kids their core classes in their native tongue.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that, and that proved enough. That proved to me that while there's great things about teaching, maybe it wasn't for me, and so I started looking for other things to do. And I first got into some sales positions down there in the Bay Area, working for telecom companies. And then I was living with my then recently, we were recently married down living in the Bay Area, and decided to come home to Seattle. And my wife's uncle was at the time doing what is called hard money loans. And that was my introduction to commercial financing.
Okay. This is interesting because I had a teacher the other day that I was interviewing. And, I think like part of what I'm trying to help articulate or break down to people is, again, not telling, everybody knows what a teacher or a coach does, but the things about those careers that people might not be thinking or may not be registering. So like, for example, you as a teacher, you kind of said, in other words, like you realized that wasn't your thing, and then you kind of flipped into something. Was it a lifestyle? Was it a compensation issue that kind of created that switch for you?
Yeah, it was. I mean, honestly, I felt like, and maybe it had to do with, just meeting my soulmate, and, wanting to really try to get the best lifestyle we could together. But there was a tremendous amount of apathy that I experienced, at least, in the environment that I was in the public school sector. And just seemed like, success wasn't what everyone was striving for. It was more, let's get these kids through the system. And the other teachers were very much about their vacation and their pay, and then that was about it. Mm-hmm. And so I don't convey that to condemn the teaching industry by any stretch, because they're phenomenal people and phenomenal teachers, professionals that do great work. But like within any, I guess, industry, there's a segment that is just, there to pick up a check. And I happen to, be in a group that was predominantly about that. And, it was very frustrating for me that, regardless of phone calls with parents and parent conferences and work with the principal, et cetera, or, I mean, you weren't holding any of these kids back. Everybody gets passed through, whether they had any comprehension or not. And so it was just a deflating type of situation.
I get it. Okay. So you moved back up to the Northwest. you got into the world of hard money, which was your introduction.
Yeah.
So let's get into that, because people are tuning in to kind of listen to what it's like to be in your world. What I mean, other than an introduction to an uncle, like, was there something about you that, a skill set, interest? Was there something innate to Ben that this made sense, or could you have gone selling at Amazon or Microsoft, or was lending and finance and real estate, were those things that you had an interest in at a younger age, or were you just rolling the dice?
Well, it was a combination. I was very tech unsavvy. I felt like a lot of people had sort of passed me by because I was in Honduras this is from 94 to 96. And so even in that time period, there were, when I came home, a lot of my friends were doing software sales, and internet sales, and they were working for internet companies. And I barely had any clue what that was all about. And then also throughout my college years, I worked construction, and I did concrete finishing. So, and I worked also with some. I worked for a property owner as well in college. So I had a little bit of tangential knowledge of real estate in general, which appealed to me. Just kind of the bricks and mortar and having the construction background. And then the finance aspect was compelling to me. And there was definitely the lure of, potentially making, decent commissions and a living.
Okay.
So it was kind of attractive but I was absolutely green when I started, but it was all very exciting.
So how many years, what age did you jump into lending? Was it like 28, 29?
Yeah, probably. Let's see. I think I was probably about 29 years old.
Okay. So, you and I, again, we're in similar spaces, different, in terms of my clientele can be anybody with a house, that wants to live in a house or a condo or whatever. Mm-hmm. You're dealing with more, I don't want to say sophisticated, but more of a unique niche of investment person who's actually buying real estate for an investment. It's not like for me, anyone I know or who's a friend or whatever, family can be a client. For you, maybe not necessarily, right? They have to kind of be in this world. How do you find your business?
Sure.
Like, how do you go about getting these people as clients?
Well, it's outside sales, right? It's marketing and it's cold calling, and it's, just trying to create relationships that will then lead you to either a referral or a direct interaction with somebody who is, needing financing. And so when I started in hard money, one of my main groups that I called on were residential mortgage brokers, because you guys get all sorts of things across your desk, and anything commercial might be something that you really don't want to muck with, but you want to help and you want to refer that person. And a lot of times it's, the bartender, not, the bar owner, or the guy who didn't have good credit, but he's got a piece of land that he's trying to develop or collateralize, or he, wants to buy, something sort of non-conforming. And that was sort of the private money side of things. And then when I was just doing exclusively, really conventional commercial financing, I called on commercial property brokers that are listing or looking for these investments for their clients. And so as they're looking or as they're listing, it's a good service for them to be able to say, hey, by the way, Ben has looked at this. He's underwritten it. He says this financing is available. He's here for you if if you'd like to get his 2 cents worth.
Right. So having knowledge, right? I mean, financing knowledge, industry knowledge, all the stuff that you just need to get in line is crucial. But I keep thinking about like the 24, 25-year-old student that's, enamored with real estate or financing, and they think they want to get in your industry. Talk to some of the, like you in the beginning, you were talking a little bit about just networking and reaching out. And, in my business, it's like almost a popularity contest that the person with the most friends wins. And what I mean by that is, you got to know people and they got to like you, right, and they got to respect you. But, if you're in a town where you don't know anybody and you don't have contacts or a database to tap into, this type of profession could be a struggle, I would think. What are some of the things that are like must-haves in your line of work? So if somebody, again, is thinking about entering your career field, what would you say like 3 or 4 things are that, are really important to be successful in your line of work?
Well, I mean, a lot of the people that are in my industry, and by the way, I'm just a super small fish in a really big pond, and there are major sort of mortgage banking houses that guys work for, and a lot of those guys come out of banks. They'll work in a bank, and they'll work their way into the commercial side of the bank, and then want to go out and be more in the open market, I guess, where you can potentially probably get compensated better. So a banking background, the majority of folks have, a couple of years where they worked for a big bank or a super money center bank or something like that.
Okay. Like what makes you good at what you do? I mean, I don't know if in your description you work for a bank, but again, you got to know people and they've got to respect you. But like, what are the skill sets or the traits that are pretty important to be successful in the commercial lending world?
Well, there's not too many of them. I mean, number one, you have to really know how to underwrite a property, because you need to be able to present it with a strong argument that's kind of airtight. And so that when your lender receives your package, it's self-contained and you are, spoon feeding them and they're agreeing with what you say and saying, yeah, let's take this to my credit committee right now and get an approval. So you have to be able to underwrite commercial real estate. And then you have to have created relationships with capital partners so that within 2 calls the best places to go for a specific loan request, because different lenders specialize in different things. Different borrowers are trying to achieve different things with their financing, and so you need to be able to meet the borrower's goals and pair them with the most appropriate lender, because otherwise you're not efficient and you're going to lose credibility, because you're going to say the borrower, hey, I can get this done for you. And they go down the road with you, but you can't get that done for them. And so it's those are the main things, is having capital partnerships, meaning, really good working relationships with a variety, a wide array of different lending institutions, because you've got everything from life insurance companies to agency financing, that's Fannie and Freddie Mac, and or you could have kind of super money centers like the great big banks, Wells and Bank of America, or all the way down to small credit unions and local and regional banks and that sort of thing.
Okay.
So you need to have created those relationships with a wide variety of lenders. And then you need to understand how to underwrite properties so that you're speaking the same language as those lenders that are going to be ultimately reviewing the deal and getting it approved and offering you terms.
So it's pretty technical, right? On one end, I mean, you got to underwrite a file, but you also have the sales ability to, articulate and attract, right? I mean, you got to win the business because there's a lot of people out there. Would you say, like, when you look at your job, like for me, freedom is something that, this is the hard part, Ben, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to help younger people, anyone really getting into a career. But sometimes you have to take action, right? Like you went and taught, and then you worked in a sales job and then hard money. And sometimes you just got to take action and it leads you to, a destination. But I also believe that sometimes you have to pay attention to what's innate, some of the signs, of who you are. Like if you're super social or if you're an introvert, maybe you're not going to be, a salesperson. Maybe you want to be an architect or sit in a room and just be by yourself. I do believe there's signs that people don't acknowledge. Like my dad's voice was like, get a job, and it's old school. But I do believe that, I see people when I talk about your zone of genius, people that are really good at what they do, that are in their flow. I think it's natural. It's like they're kind of doing what they were meant to do. And I know that, not every part of a job is awesome. I mean, I know it's called work for a reason, but you do bump into people every once in a while. You're like, wow, man, that person is really, really good at what they do, and they seem to love it. Is there any advice you could give to, say, someone who's struggling or thinking about getting into, say, maybe your line of work or real estate or financing, but doesn't know for sure? Like any questions that you might want to ask them to make sure that this is the right fit, or any advice that you might want to give them just based on your years of experience?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say that for, if you want to get into mortgage banking, you're probably more of an outside sales type personality. Now, a lot of the big mortgage banking houses will also have more introverted people that are in supporting roles, like just underwriters. And underwriters, whether it's in a bank or in a brokerage, mortgage brokerage kind of house, are not necessarily out front digging up, shaking the bushes trying to get deals. They're strictly just working the deals that are in the house. And so if you are into finance, that's a great avenue to pursue.
Yeah.
And then the probably the advice, if it was a college kid or somebody or anybody that's saying, hey, I love real estate and I love just finance in general. It seems to me that the brokerage side, the listing and buying of the real estate might be more lucrative than the financing side.
Okay.
Because on every deal, those commissions are more than the financing. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that, because, in every job, there's things you get out of a job, that are important. And like for me, freedom is super important. I wanted, I didn't know this. The problem is I didn't know this as a kid, but I wanted to wake up with my kids. I wanted to go to bed with them. I wanted to coach them. You have a stud daughter who plays softball in college. I know you love to watch her play. My dad was a pilot, so my dad would be gone half the month, right? I didn't want to miss life with my family. That to me was is the most important thing. So I carved out an industry or a job around not traveling, where I could be home and be present. In the commercial lending space, so freedom was big for me. I didn't want to be capped on my commission. I didn't want to be hourly or have just one salary. I wanted upside. what are the things in commercial lending, that are important to you that you're getting out, along those lines?
Well, I mean, it really is very similar. I mean, that's probably my greatest joy is how much I experience my kids growing up, both my son and my daughter. Just because home office was a pretty routine thing even back then for me at least, and even when I was in an office, very much like outside sales, right? You have a lot of freedom. So you have a lot of rope, to hang yourself, and you have to you only eat what you kill. Not a whole lot of real big salaries available. It's mostly all commission. So maximum freedom, maximum feast and famine. So
I mean, it's a similar gig. Compensation, like we get paid per deal one time. You guys, same way, right? There's no recurring revenue stream associated with the deal. It's a one-time shot, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so as far as building like a repetitive database or something that turns over, like you might do a deal for a client and never do a deal with them again. Or are you experiencing that you land a referral partner or an investor, are you doing 5 deals a year with them, or is it just totally all over the board?
It is all over the board, although I definitely have clients that I have literally done deals with going back 15 years, and it might be 2 deals in 1 year, and then you don't do a deal for a couple of years, and then you do another deal. So insofar as you're able to, really stand out and provide good service and create a relationship, there could be great opportunities for, repeat customers, because successful investors tend to, sweep the equity from one property and go get in and buy another property. And so there's tremendous opportunity to get repeat business.
Yeah. Is there anything about the job that you're like, it's funny, I was talking to a friend the other day, and he didn't want to come on and do it because he's a pilot, and he was worried about his employer and the union watching it and having him be real honest about some of the things that he didn't like about his profession. You and I don't really have that issue, but anything you could point out, like your daughter who's in college in Montana, let's just say in 3 years, she's like, hey, I think I want to do what you do, Dad. Like, is there anything that you would say, hey, that's cool, but be aware, you got to deal with this, and that? Are there a couple things that come to mind that you might want to warn people about who are thinking about entering your world?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's some challenging, obviously, right, in any service industry, and one of them is, that a lot of times, the investor will look at that financing piece as less of a partnership, which is what I'd like to consider it. Where I'm really value add, and we're going to work together, because it does take a lot of effort from the borrower to get a deal across the finish line. So they might view it less as a partnership and more as just a tailoring job. Like, look, I'm paying you this, and that's it. And there's kind of, can be no loyalty, or just a very transactional kind of posture from your client, right? And so that if that's the case, you're always at risk of potentially losing a deal that you've worked really hard on from somebody else that sweeps in and either offers something better or finds something better. So it's a dicey proposition.
It is.
There's a fair amount of risk.
That's the one thing I can't stand sometimes about my business is just the lack of loyalty. And there's a lot of options out there, and it's funny. You might work with somebody for 6-7 months, and then all of a sudden Rocket Mortgage comes in and they steal your deal. But I would say that's a really good one. I mean, it's, in any job, I guess, nothing, the stickiness, the loyalty, I think like other professions like financial management and maybe commercial insurance or something, maybe there are professions out there that are a little stickier where you might retain a client more easily. But I would say definitely in our world, that can be an issue. Is there a second one that you can think of that, not to say, what do you hate about your job, but just something that maybe is not so obvious?
That's nothing's coming right to the top of my mind, but
that's okay.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, but
that's cool. So tell me, like, I know you're a humble guy, but like, what makes you good, unique at what you do? Like, what is it, about you as a commercial lender? Like, why, if someone says, why would I go with you? I mean, apart from like, hey, I know the business, I have good relationships, but personally, like the core of Ben, what are the things about you that make you good at what you do?
Well, I'm a real moral guy, and I do view every interaction as, I would never do a bait and switch. I would never, try to price something to the maximum for my profitability, as opposed to, what's going to make this deal successful for the investor, for the client. So I'm very straightforward and very honest, and I, it just means a lot more to me how I'm perceived by people than whether or not I can maximize my profit. And then, yeah, I do think that at least I've run up against plenty situations where I am seeing competitors offer things that, I know they can't execute on. And I've lost business that way because people will take something that appears to be a better deal, but then it doesn't close the way that it was quoted, and they get to the finish line and it was actually slightly less than what I had presented in the first place. So that's kind of the nature of the beast.
No, I get it. So let me ask you, if you could, you and I are close to age. I always ask this question, but if you could go back in time, coming out of University of Washington, it's hard to do that because you have life experience that's led you in a direction. But let's just say you could go back knowing what you know now. Would you choose the same line of work or would you do something different?
That's interesting. And for me, it might be a little different because, that I have MS. And so that sort of forced me to have a home office and kind of forced me to take maximum flexibility, maximum, flexibility is the best way to put it. And so this job has afforded me that opportunity. I didn't lose my job because I couldn't perform my job. I just had to adjust and I had to do it for myself. I couldn't, I couldn't report to an office every day. So, while there are, and like I said before, even the property brokerage side of things, I think it would have been cool to get into that younger, and maybe could have been more profitable, but that would have been a job that I really would have had to quit and not been able to continue, because you got to be able to walk properties with people. You got to be able to go out and be a bird dog and go find properties or go tour properties and that's just too much work. I just can't do it. I can't get out.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I guess, we're given everything, and that's everything. I probably would take this line of work or some other line of work that I hadn't considered that would give me the same opportunity to, work from home and take things at my own pace.
I hear you. So this question is, let's just imagine you were in a situation where you could do anything you want, walk anywhere you had total freedom. Is there a dream job? Like, I'm talking like, I'm talking, like Fantasyland kind of stuff. Like, if you could do anything, do you ever think like that? Or are you just kind of black and white? Or is there a dream job? Like, if Ben could do anything, is there something out there that you think about?
Not really. I don't really, I got too many other things to occupy my time in my life than dreaming about what I would have been able to do. I mean, heck, if we're talking Fantasyland, then I'd have been probably either a quarterback or a point guard. I don't know.
I thought maybe politician.
Oh,
I mean, I don't know.
God.
Yeah, I know. But I tell you, one of the things I love about you is just, I love listening to your posts and reading. I mean, I learn a lot from you, and you seem very dialed in and very, obviously there's other people that might counter what you believe in, but I guess I was thinking something where, politically inclined, but maybe I'm off base. I don't know.
Yeah, that is an interesting thought too. I mean, I certainly that's crossed my mind. Like, were it not for MS, like, would I have sought to do something? But boy, you got to be connected, and you got to start at the ground. You don't get to just go run for Senate out of the clear blue sky. And I don't know that I'd want to put in the groundwork, of going up through the mud and the muck to reach a place where it would be really cool, I certainly.
They could use you, Ben. I would vote for you.
Man, we are in dire straits.
You brought up something that I just kind of off the top of my head, I'm going to ask you about in terms of the MS. Like, I think that's an interesting angle as well, because like I had a friend of mine, or my old processor, her husband was in an accident, fell off. He was construction, fell off, and he's been in a chair for for 15 years, and he's in my world. He was in construction, building. Now he's a lender, and he's one of the best lender. He's a grinder. He's really good at what he does. That's another thing is, young adults, young people that might have certain realities in their life that might, like I had a client on who's 6'6" and he wanted to be a pilot, but he was too tall. There's just realities of like, there's certain things you can't do based off of whatever. I think that's an interesting angle to think about, is the jobs or careers out there that allow maximum flexibility or freedom, where you don't actually, have to get in a car or walk around or go show houses or show places or whatever. I think that's another cool thing about your business and my business is, like if I want to live in Sun Valley, which I did 7 years ago, moved my family and we put the kids in school, I can do that in this line of work. So could you. But that's an interesting angle to consider is these jobs that we're in remote, where the value is our voice and our knowledge, and we can do it over the phone or the internet. And those are things to consider as well for some people.
Yeah, for sure.
So
for sure.
Anything else that, maybe I didn't ask you that you felt compelled to say? I mean, again, the why is trying to help people make better decisions. People get locked in, we call it golden handcuffs. And before they know it, they're in a career that it's hard to get out of. Or they've invested 10 years of their life in school to be a doctor, and then they realize they don't want to be a doctor. Is there anything that you can think of that maybe I didn't ask, or any other words of wisdom before we end this that you might want to share?
Well, just that if somebody is inclined to maybe go down this road or just investigate for themselves. We haven't really mentioned any specific businesses or houses or investment mortgage bankers, but there's like, for example, Bank of America. Somebody who wants to get into commercial mortgage banking, they're not going to find the right contact at Bank of America by just looking online. But a deeper dive, and go onto Google and look up commercial real estate mortgage bank or commercial real estate finance, and look at the different. There's lots of big houses here in the Puget Sound area that do it. And there's, in my mind, there's kind of two sides of the fence. There are two main industry paths, and that's either the listing, the property brokers, or the people that are providing the financing. And both are, there's lots of ways to work your way into either one of those industries if you're so inclined.
Yeah. No, I agree. Sometimes it's just, contact, someone who knows somebody. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
I look back and I remember one of my best friends met Mark Cuban at a trade show, and I was in that video streaming industry and he needed a guy. And next week I flew out to Dallas and he hired me. And, without those guys having drinks at a bar in New York, I would have, never gone down that road. But I appreciate your time. I really do. I think you're a great guy, and I appreciate you've always been patient with me, being a big dummy when I'm asking about commercial lending. But I appreciate it. I don't think there's anything else I have, but thanks for taking the time.
Well, likewise, Dirk. I think the world of you, and I appreciate you, taking the time to interview me. Hopefully it sparks something for somebody. And also, thank you, because you referred people to me when you've had the opportunity. So I certainly appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, I'll end on that. Is for me, like, what's really important when somebody like you, and this is who I think I am, is I want someone who's honest, who doesn't bullshit, who I can trust. There's a lot of sales sharks in my industry that are looking for the commission check. And that's one of the things I've struggled with, is to try to differentiate myself from those types of people. But that's one of the things I gravitate towards you on, is you're just kind of a real dude. And like, for me, I'm not really ever looking to win a deal. I'm kind of trying to win the relationship. And maybe, I'm not the best option, but maybe in 2 years I am. But I think that's what I like about you, is I feel like you're going to get a real straight, skinny scoop out of Ben every time. And, that's sometimes hard to find. So thanks for that. And
and that's anybody who wants to get into sales, that's sales 101, right? I mean, every successful salesperson, every successful business person, they're much more concerned with the relationship and, than anything else, really.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I mean, the truth is there's a lot of people in sales that fit that stereotype. And I think that's why people like you and I maybe stand out. And again, I'm not patting myself on the back, but that's one of the things that, is important for me in terms of how I'm perceived. Because there's a lot of options. There's not a lot of barriers to entry in terms of what I do. And what that translates to is, you watch reality TV shows, and usually 60% of the guys on those shows are loan officers. There's just, it's easy to get into this line of work. So I think you deal with a lot of people that are after the buck. And I like money, but I also want to do the right thing. And I know you do too. So I'll stop with that. Thanks again, Ben. And have a good day.
Hey, thanks a lot, Dirk. You take care, buddy.
All right.
Bye.